Hey guys, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Bot War episode 4, which we're going to be covering trashes today. I'd like to welcome our guests. We've got Bjorn, Anthony, and Stuart. Hi guys, how are you going tonight?
Yeah, good,
Good.
Mark. How are you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
good. It's
good.
really great to be back. Have we had a good month?
Yes. Yes.
We've got a lot to talk about tonight. We're going to also do a bit of a shortened format. We've obviously been doing big, long shows. We're going to try and bring that in under an hour today so that we can make it much more effective for everybody. And that way you can focus more on trashes, who is going to be our main faction of discussion tonight. And we hope that you'll get a lot out of it. But before we get into that, we should turn to our master of all things Traders Galaxy and Anthony. Give us a rundown of what's going on.
Yes, well, I'm quite excited that I've started showing pictures of the Red Star stuff that's being manufactured at the moment. So I think a couple of weeks ago I showed some very blurry pictures of miniatures that were on like a fence thing, which was weird. But and I've just shown today the new Turbo Plus cards, which actually are the first Turbo Plus cards that have been printed like hard copy, and as well as the special edition Red Star critical dice and the red cubes, which are standard that come with it. So yeah, that was actually quite exciting. I wasn't expecting those pictures, so that's pretty good, and that's from my new card manufacturer as well, which is good to see. You always worry a little bit, but yeah, no, that was pretty exciting. We're about to start sculpting on Craw's Warband. I've only got one more of the concepts to color, which is the dude that got redone after Bjorn said he didn't like the look of the bulky guy.
The one. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, the guy's a heavy weapon, so he's just getting coloured now, but like the dogs are done and all that sort of stuff. So it's going to be quite an interesting little warband. So that'll be start sculpting in July. So yeah, there's a fair bit of stuff happening actually. It's going to get pretty crazy. It's very crazy year this year.
You pretty much got releases almost month for month now, don't you? Right up to
Oh,
September, October.
I've got more releases than can fit into the months between now and December. So I'm unsure. That's part of the problem. I can't sort of get the release schedule right in my head because I'm now also doing the other games as well. So I'm trying to like fit those games in as well as like other stuff. So it's going to be interesting.
It's going to be good. And
yeah,
keep looking on Facebook. I know Anthony's done a number of messages on that, giving you a bit of a rundown of what's coming out when. And no doubt that will get a further amendment in the not too far distant future, I'm betting.
yeah, sure, yeah.
All right. Is there anything else you want to share with us, Anthony, before we move across to painting with Stu?
Not particularly. Like I know where. Otherwise, I think I might just be rambling. I just am quite pleased this year with all the new artwork and stuff coming out for Bot War. I think it's really made a big difference to the game and how it looks and stuff like that. So there's just some really cool stuff coming down the track.
It's exciting. And there's been a lot of community games out there in the community as well, which I'm really excited to see too, which is great.
Yeah.
We're going to actually go across to a new segment that Stuart's been continuing to evolve. Stuart's done some videos for us today, and I'm really looking forward to showing this video on how to paint better. We call it Painting with Stuart, and I'm going to get him to give us just a quick rundown before we actually get into playing the great piece of work that he's put together. Stu, just tell us what we're about to see.
Well, after I think it was last podcast, we were talking about some of the models that I'd done and picked up on the yellow and the way that I do yellow. So I thought what I'd do is set up my camera and see whether or not I could do just a quick video showing very quickly just the basic techniques that I use to get a nice strong yellow. So that's what we're about to watch. Just a few steps. It's not everything that I do, but it'll give you a nice, good, bold result in the end.
That's great. We're going to throw across to that now.
I wanted to go through just quickly the first few steps that I'll look at just when I'm doing like a nice bright yellow, and I'm going to use this really old model from the Atlantican range, which is actually a 3D print. 3D print of the, I think it's Necton model, but we'll use that one. Let's see if we can focus that in better. There we go. I'll try not to move it about. My camera's a bit. Ugh. Better. It's going to focus. Yeah, there we go. So I'll keep it about there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through my basic steps. Now you can see here that I have a few different items here. Little plastic tray just to mix it on. Got some water and a couple of different brushes. Nice big one for applying the contrast paint. I think this is a size 2, but I'm not 100% sure. Oh, it's a size 4. You can see there. Kolinsky Sable. Very nice brush. Got this from Travelling Man. It's only a couple of quid. It's a very nice brush. I use it for almost everything in terms of base colours. As you can see, the point's kind of gone now, but it still has its uses, especially when you're doing something like contrast painting. And we've got this synthetic brush from Games Workshop, which has seen better days. I'm not totally sold on these synthetic brushes, but they do have their uses. So they do have their uses. So I'm going to just apply a couple of highlights onto it, just to let you just to show you how I do that. So first things first, I'm going to give the contrast paint a good shake. Yeah, that should be good enough. You can see it's a Yandin yellow, which is a really, really, really bright colour. It looks really orange when you first open it up, but I do swear it will come out nice yellow. I've done this guy in light grey, so I think it's what would be Ghost Grey from Colour Forge. Or I can't remember the name of the Games Workshop, but any light grey, like really light grey, will work. I do actually prefer, or did prefer, the Corax white paint before the Games Workshop discontinued them, but work with what you have, I suppose. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to show you how I apply the contrast paint to get this nice and even, because one of the things that people tend to do is they just slop it on really thick and just let it do its work, which is fine. You can do that and it will give you a nice contrast, but on these larger models, on these models where you've got quite a large amount of flat surfaces, I tend to find you need a bit more control. So as you can see, I've put a bit more. Hold on, I'm trying to do this with. I'm looking at the camera. So what we're going to do is start in one point and just move all the way down. You can see it collecting there. It looks awful. We're going to move around the model. Nice easy strokes. I'll try and keep that in focus, sorry. Right, there we go. That's a good place to start. So you'll see I've got quite a nice even colour here, and you can see there, like I've got quite a lot of colour on it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to even this out and just take that down Just keep it so that it's just got the colour in the main part of the panel. Contrast paint will kind of do the rest for you. Nice and even. And when that dries, it'll be nice and solid yellow, and then we'll just go around and do the rest of the model as well. Might as well. Dead easy. Look at this. It's dead easy. It's gonna take a couple of minutes, and then you'll see a lovely yellow model. Da 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 da. There we go. So we're just gonna again take it off. Well, not take it off, but just even out, get rid of these splotches. Oop, shoot. Off camera there. Then we'll do the other leg. Ba, 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 ba. Ba, 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 ba. There we go. Do, 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 do. Now what I'll do is I'll do another video using some zenithal highlights. Maybe it's a darker one so you can see what the difference would be. Because I've got, I mean, yeah, you can see that I'm going for just a nice flat yellow. I haven't gone too far into the idea of having a huge amount of colour on it, a huge amount of like sort of contrast and variation. The great thing about contrast paint is it'll kind of do that itself anyway. I'll just start paint over that when I get round to it. I think we'll leave that there. A bit more yellow. Just go around the model. I'm just going to do this quite quick. You can see I'm not really being that careful. I don't really care because I know that the other colours are going to be quite dark as well. So when I'm doing this, I don't have to really take much care in where the actual other colours are going to be, or what, you know, going over the lines, so to speak. But I just want to make sure that I get a nice solid yellow on it. Right, okay, let's now, and again I'm just going to go around and have a look and see. Oh, I haven't done his arms, never mind. But just so that I've got this to work with at the minute, I'm just going to redistribute some, just even this out because I don't want that to be quite so globby, because that's going to dry really awful if I leave it there. And again, don't worry about these brush strokes that it's leaving in. That will even out as contrast paint pulls towards the right. It's not too bad a picture. I'm just going to go through some quick highlights. So first things first, what I'm going to do is just, I mean, these are not going to be great because it's a terrible brush. I'm just going to line off these areas here, and you can see, can you see? I'm just taking the brush and putting it on these areas here, and the contrast paint's done a lot of the work for us. And again, this is not the best brush to be doing this with, but all the other brushes are downstairs, and I'm trying to do this quite quick and exaggeratedly so that you get an idea of what it is that I'm doing. So all I'm doing is just going around the edges and picking them out. And you can see from the flatness of the contrast paint that I've done, making sure that I've marked it out. Especially with the Baltimore's miniatures, this process is so super quick. It's all the other bits that take the time, the details and the power bits and metals and bleh. But getting your flat colours, or your basic flat colour, Should be a nice, quick process. And you can do this for anything. Like, you know, I do this for reds. I do this for quite a lot of colours. Anything where there's lots of flat surfaces. I'm not going to do a huge amount because I want to show you how I accent it. Hope that's dry enough. Probably isn't, but like I say, I'm doing this quick so we can show this on the podcast. I'm just going to do that. And again, if I was doing this as a proper commission or one of my models, I would be doing this a lot more neatly. Right, there we go. And you can also, like, if you're unhappy with the yellow, you can pull this out a bit so you can, like, gradiate it, especially if it's a little damp. Just gradiate that out, make it a bit brighter on certain areas. You can see the print lines on this, it's terrible that. I printed this one, I should probably point out. This is printed on my printer from the Classics 3D STLs range that Traders Galaxy does, which I've done quite a few actually. I've done General Duck, War Duck as well. They're very, very nice STLs, very easy to put your supports on and stuff. So that's that. Now I'm going to add a little yellow into this white here. And just get as good a point as I can on here. And I'm not going to do the whole line, because you don't do the whole line. It looks stupid if you do that. What we're going to do is we'll just do most of it. Get that looking good. And then do most of that. A little bit of this. And that. Across here. Just picking out the edges and a little bit more. There we go. I'm just going to do some accents on here so that when I get the final pick, we can see exactly what it is that you're getting. You can see as you start putting these final highlights on, and again I'm exaggerating this a little bit too much, it starts to come together as a really, really solid, nice yellow. Ugh. See if we can get that. How's that? That's pretty good. And there we go. That's how I do yellow. Dead easy, dead quick. And so long as you're neat with your other colours, you shouldn't have any problems. Like I say, just make sure that you do an even coat with your contrast paint. Make sure you don't keep it pooling anywhere, especially on these flat panels. And you can do bigger things as well. You know, you can do tanks, you can do anything. It's as long as it's got, you know, flat panels. One myth I think about contrast paint and these speed paints is that you have to do stuff with lots and lots of detail and lots of relief. You don't. You can do them on flat panels. You've just got to be careful about where you're placing it and just make sure that you even out the coat. And you can even, like I've done here, you can see, or what's happened here is that it's kind of pooled there, which is quite nice. I might exaggerate that, or probably exaggerate that with a few washes and maybe some Avalon Sunset thin down just to kind of even that out. It creates quite a nice little highlight. But yeah, dead easy. Dead easy. Once you get the hang of it. Just try it with a couple of models first. I actually quite like 3D printing stuff. These ones now as examples. So there we go. Hope that's helpful, and I'll.
What an awesome video. We're going to obviously be looking at much greater detail. And I'm looking forward to the way, Stuart, you do it for our next episode, because I think these videos are really great because it actually gives people an opportunity to see how you're doing what you're doing, and it'll allow them to build up and grow on that, which is really fantastic.
Well,
And
if
hopefully
anybody's got
go
any,
more.
yeah, if anybody's got any suggestions or would like me, a particular aspect of painting to be covered, then just let me know. Put a comment on Facebook or in Discord, and I'll have a look and see what I can do.
Awesome. And Stuart, do you have a website if people want to come across and have a look at your work?
Not at the moment. I've got an Instagram. You can find me on Instagram under Wolfmaker.
Okay.
But website is incoming, hopefully soon. Something I've been working on for a while. It just hasn't quite come together yet.
I'm betting a lot of our fans are very interested to continue to learn how to paint better with you. So thank you. After our break, we come back and we're going to talk about the trashes. So stay tuned. All right, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the trashes and trasher armies. I've got this wonderful display piece started up here on the screen. I'm betting all of our regulars are currently looking at that picture. Is that correct? Anthony, this is a piece of trashes art. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
When you said regulars, I was not including myself.
My apologies. So I'm just confirming that we've got it up on the screen. Yeah, look, obviously, I know that we're going to be talking about trashes tonight and trashes as an army. It's one of our older armies, isn't it? Anthony, I'll get you to take us through a bit of the history of trashes.
Yeah, it was actually one of the original 5. That was way back in Bot War 1. So it was the 4th, I think. But yeah, so it actually has evolved a lot since then. And I think they really didn't come into their own until the first, because the trashes were my first major resin pre-order. That sort of established how I do all the pre-orders, like moving forward. So it was really popular at the time. I think the trashes pre-order is probably the 3rd most popular pre-order that we did. So a lot of people got into trashes. I think a lot of people love the Trashosaur as well. So
well, here we've got him on the screen fighting Destroyer. He's a pretty awesome miniature. He looks great on the actual field when you get him on there. And yeah,
so
like a big dinosaur.
Yeah, lore wise, the trashes are one of because there's only 5 combiners and they all follow each of the 5 elementals in the game. Now, Trashosaur is Terransaur, which is the elemental of life, but because of the Trasher code, it warps Terransaur's normal code just like any other normal thing into becoming Trashosaur instead of Terransaur. So that's why he's got a different name to the Destroyer and things like that. But yeah, just a little bit of background lore. But I think everyone really wants to hear about the game and how they work.
Well, tell us a little bit more about trashes, because obviously one thing that we've been doing is not really talking about the lore behind what they are. I know people can read it. I know it's in our faction guide. But in a nutshell, when you're talking about the trashes, we're talking about bots that are trying to be redeemed through the Trasher code. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, it's actually the idea is a little bit like the old dwarf slayers from Warhammer. Is that I remember that was their thing. They dyed their hair orange, and they took on some sort of like grudge or something, and tried to redeem themselves through battle. And that's a little bit what the trashes are. That's why they're orange, and that's where the inspiration came from, which probably surprised a lot of people. But yeah, that's where the inspiration came from, the orange and blue. And yeah, that's pretty much what they are. Once they redeem themselves or get to a certain point that the one sees that they're redeemed, then the Trasher code is lifted and they go back to being a Valiant or whatever they were. So that's it. That's it in a nutshell, really.
And so, from that same perspective, because we're talking law, is this a way the deceivers could effectively correct their defaulty code? Could they enter
Well,
the code?
there was in the second edition bot war, there was some talk of Bruiser being an actual deceiver, which was like unknown, like how a deceiver could redeem themselves. So it sort of broke the law a little bit. So I've kept quiet about it. But old veterans would remember that Bruiser was originally a potential deceiver. So when he came out as a special edition in second, or a limited edition in second edition, but yeah, so mostly they're Valiants, and a lot of them actually came from when the Valiants crashed. So I think actually in the law, I can't remember which one it is now, whether it's Scraper or Face Off, they actually caused the crash somehow. So that's why they took on the Trasher code
to redeem.
Yeah.
They broke the ship.
Yeah.
Well, look, they're a great faction. What I find interesting from the guide, and whether we'll get an update, and I'll get Stuart and Bjorn's perspective, is of all of the guides that we have, the Trashers don't have any special rules that they necessarily bring in. Like if you look at something like Coils or the Democracy, they've got some special rules if you play just that faction. Trashers are pretty strong to fight in hand-to-hand or melee combat or close attack, but they don't have any special rules at this stage. Is that something that could potentially develop over time, that they develop their own special rules as a faction?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. The reason why they don't have any is because part of the reason for the guides was to offer a little bit more tweaking balance for potential tournament play. And the Trashers already really strong.
They are.
So the idea was to bring everybody up to around about that level. So or not everybody, but a lot of the ones that couldn't, that weren't on that tier. It was to try and bring the tiers a bit closer together with them. The other thing is as well is that the Trashers being one of the earlier guides, like I did most of the early guides with factions that I didn't feel needed any tweaking. So I just did them straight, like as a straight guide, to just compile all the lore and everything we've made. Because that was actually a bit of a problem, is that we had so much lore spread out everywhere that anyone that wanted to learn about Trashers had to go searching and try and find stuff about it and all this sort of stuff. So we tried to just compile it all into that. But yeah, I don't feel it needed anything for tournament play. They're already pretty strong.
They're an amazing close attack army. You really don't want to be anywhere near them in close attack. And where there's one, there's usually four. So the mob attack tends to be probably one of their strongest attacks. You look at any of the bot war battle reports online, it's usually that they just run all over the top of the other players. That's certainly the way I've seen them played. I'm going to throw open to Bjorn and to Stuart. What do you think of Trashers? How have you been playing them?
So I've played against the Trashers a lot. I've never played with them, but I've played against them a lot. They are possibly one of the teams to play against. Yeah, see, that's normally what happens. My coils then get beaten by my friends' Trashers. The thing about the Trashers is that, so even though they're weak, much in the way of ranged combat, it doesn't really. It's not a huge weakness for them in the end. They're so strong that they can generally weather most attacks, most normal ranged attacks, as they're making their way up to punch you in the face, kind of thing. There's a lot of combat shields. There's a upgrade for a combat shield which is generally like one of the better teams I see being run is Combat Shield Heavy. So that alone keeps them fairly safe from most standard fire as they're coming up to you, and they're quite a cheap faction. Like their average cost isn't hugely high. There's a few pieces, like obviously Chopper, but Chopper is worth the points kind of thing. Maybe like Fury's probably like the next most expensive, and really all the rest, like you're getting really good, strong pieces for like 8, 9, 10 points kind of thing. So they are able to form like quite a large kind of warband that is very difficult to deal with. Once they get up to
big
you,
death
then
ball.
not a chance. And Trashosaur he's probably of the combiners, because his individual pieces that make him up are probably the strongest set of 5 out of all of them. I mean, the Atlanticans, they have mag guns, but still, Trashosaur as like a piece of like, he's a great way of getting that group of 5 down the board without being hurt, and then break apart and just swarm over your opponent kind of thing. But yeah, they're a very strong faction.
Totally agree. Stuart, your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought I think much the same as Bjorn. They're a very tough opponent to go up against. I did actually manage to get a chance to have a game with them last week or a week before, I think. I managed to use the champions of life. Yeah, with Trashosaur, and that's a great little combo. That's such a fun combo to use. Especially when your opponent doesn't have something of a similar size. I think it's intimidating in itself. But yeah, the one thing that did strike me is like you said, the warband size, because they're all around about 9, 10, 11, 12 points. You can, even at 80 points, the old points system, you can have quite a sizable force.
Yeah.
And even if you wanted to take Trashosaur and the old sort of point system, you could still have quite a decent, like, a couple of extras to protect you against like objective bombing by other people.
Yeah.
I think in the lists that I was looking at,
I've got that up here. There you go, Stuart. You want to have a talk about it?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is actually the list I used. So most of it was just for the combined. I wanted to use Trashosaur because it's a nice big model, but I still wanted to have a few extras going around. So the generator was just to provide a little bit of a battery and a help out, and then Chopper because he's actually got a decent ranged attack, and he's pretty tough. What was the other one? Crusher, just for the advanced deployment to get him up the board for objective capture, and Wrecker because combat shield and regenerate, so he's a tough one to move off objectives. And again, you send them off on your flanks, and the big one just right down the middle of the board, and it's a rough thing to deal with. It's a very rough thing to deal with.
Well, with all of that list, you're looking at shields of either Chopper being 4 shields or everybody else being 3 shields of defense, just off the bat.
Yeah.
Even
I mean, there's a few combat shields.
Correct. On top of that, they just destroy.
Yeah.
That's where you need things like the disorientate and stuff like that. You need
Blast.
Yeah.
Blast's a good one for...
Yeah, for combiners for sure. But yeah, things like disorientate or gas gun, like stuff that breaks the shields down.
Yeah, your disorientate guy, though, he'll generally be up a bit further to put out disorientate, and you'll get it on him once, and then they'll just beat the crap out of him, and he'll be gone, kind of thing.
and I guess that comes down to whether you choose to use Trashosaur or not, because if there was disorientate, would you choose to merge together and allow him to do that to you, or would you split apart? He can only attack one of the 5 targets, and then just mob him with the other 4. Is another way to go. So it really does depend on how that disorientate is played and how it can be protected long enough that it can actually be effective.
Well, disorient's quite short.
That's the other thing, because disorientate affects your guys as well, except for the one that drops it. So it's difficult to protect the guy dropping disorientate because it keeps all of your guys are vulnerable as well.
I remember playing one of the later games I had against Aiden. He used Trashes with Trashosaur, and I was playing Overlords, and Gorg just mind controlled one of the dudes so he couldn't form.
Yeah.
And then nuclear shells did the rest. Because once you put nuclear shells on just one, it doesn't have enough energy then to form into Trashosaur. So there are some counters, but I agreed they're still incredibly dangerous. And the counters are far from sort of like guaranteed.
No.
Yeah.
Trashosaur from forming kind of thing. You're not out of the woods kind of thing. That you still have still have all these other trashes coming down towards you. So you mess up that wall. Another one to come.
I agree with you, Stuart. I think you need that generator, though. You need that extra energy coming in from
the battery.
Generator. It's absolutely essential with the trashes.
That's part of their Achilles heel, isn't it? If you can get rid of the generator.
You can also, if you place it really well, to lure in your opponent to try to get that generator kind of thing. That's another way that they make that effort to go get that generator just to sort of and you lured them into a bit of a trap kind of thing.
Well, it's so important with the trashes to have the generator operational, because if you don't get that generator, then another trasher, because they've got so little energy because they need a lot of energy for boosts and stuff. And so because you've got so little surplus energy in the trasher's force, and the generator fills a lot of that gap. Like if you take out the generator, you've effectively taken out another trasher as well, which you'll then have to stand in as the battery to power the rest of the force. So you're not only getting the generator, but you're then getting rid of a second guy coming up the field because he needs to put all his energy into the other trashers. So it's not easy, that's for sure. But I think it's not impossible.
And Stuart, how did you go? Did you beat your opponent with this army?
Well, we played twice. I did the first time, but the second time he changed his list around a little bit. He's using coils, so there's a lot of blasting. He just kind of got the got the better of it.
He got some lucky rolls. The dice rolls were in his favor.
And I think as well,
still was a pretty rough. Sorry,
I think as well, when you get with trashes, if you're trying to face all of them at once, it's much harder to try and like Bjorn was saying, like the death ball of the war band running up the field all together. That's actually much harder to deal with rather than a few at a time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like if you're just dealing with 2 or 3 at a time, and it does actually get to even though you're saying even at 80 points you get a lot of trashes, I think compared to other forces, you hit that sort of critical mass of danger earlier with trashes, if you know what I mean. Like if you lose a certain number of trashes, then your force is a lot less effective than what a shooting force would be if it had lost the same number of models.
Yeah.
Because you've got to run a lot more distance with the trashes to do anything. Like I find with the trashes, when I play the trashes, it crumbles away a lot faster after you've lost a certain amount. Whereas if I'm playing with, say, red cannoneers, it doesn't crumble away. Like even if you're down to like 3 models, you still feel like it's like you're still generating damage on the opponent. So
Yeah.
Is that
The
also
other thing that you have to
sorry.
go, Stu.
No, go on. You go.
I was just going to say the other thing, because they use ram attack a lot, like that's your super for everyone, outside. Because you use ram attack so much, like you rely on that a lot, and because you're trying to get into close combat, if your opponent's smart and tries to like really, you can see people. So if your opponent's smart enough to sort of like keep moving away from you just the right amount that you can't quite get to them, kind of thing, that can, sort of wear them down a bit, kind of thing. It's probably a very boring strategy to try to take down the trashes, but that is one thing. It's because they need to get to you to kill you. Most of them are only shooting with 1 dice, kind of thing. So they're not really going to hurt you trying to shoot you, except for like Chopper and I think Scraper or someone.
What's my force? I've actually got a force here which has got some of their better shooters. It's Face Off and Scrapper, on top of Chopper. They have some ranged ability.
Yeah.
And in my list, I've actually added them as models. So I know with Stuart's army, he had 8 models in total. My army's 1 point more, but I think I've got 9 from memory, because I've got Chopper, Face Off, and Scrapper. And I've also got Ruckus, Smash, Bruiser, Dicer, Beat Up, but I've also included Scorcher in that, the special promo model. And the reason I've included Scorcher is because they can actually transport the generator, and they can go for the very reason you were mentioning about before. You can lure people in, and then you can actually pick up the generator and move it. Not to mention you get that extra model on the table, and they can do repair. So, given that Scorcher's only 10 points, practically nothing, still brings a lot to the table. But it's that transport the generator that I think is probably one of the gold standards there. If the force is getting too close to that generator, she can literally pick it up and carry it to another section of the table and keep it out of range.
Didn't you name Scorcher, Bjorn?
Yep.
I think you named Scorcher.
Yeah. Yeah, you did you asked people to suggest a name and like a profile kind of thing. That's not the profile I suggested. But that's the name I suggested. Somebody's profile that they suggested or not. But yeah, that was the name I suggested. And then I kept bugging you about royalties. You just ignore me.
Well, they do have Scorcher does have a range attack of 2. So, obviously
Scorcher for 10 points is great.
Yeah.
But
really
10 points, she's really good.
And she still has ram attack. So it's still there, great shields, the whole bit. So while I made a little bit different, we both agreed, Stuart and I both went with Chopper, but I did include Face Off and Scrapper because they've got that range attack 3. And I thought, as they're storming up the field, if you're a bit strategic in how you use your range attack, you could actually pick off some of the weaker bots who might be trying to take things down. So when the mob actually finally gets there, they can plow in on the really big bots and just take them down.
And Chopper with ground to air missile is just, he's you need to sort of include him, especially in the list when you if you're playing with friends, you kind of all know what each other has and what you're probably going to play against. But if you're going to play in a tournament where you have to make a list that has to deal with the most variety possible, you kind of need Chopper in there with the ground to air missile. Because he's going to be so helpful.
Yeah, I wouldn't take a Trashers list to a tournament without Chopper, because Chopper, it's not about whether he can shoot stuff, it's where dictating where the opponent deploys. Like if you don't have Chopper against a Trashers list, and the opponent can deploy anywhere and you can't do anything about it, really.
Yeah.
Whereas if at least if you've got chopper, they have to stay out of line of sight. You know what I mean? Which means that they have to move an activation to get into line of sight and potentially expose themselves before shooting you. But if they start off already in line of sight, then they got 2 shots straight off the bat.
Mm.
Because you're going to run forward and they're going to get 2 shots.
Yep. But I mean, look at Chopper. He's 17 points, but he's got a range attack 3. He's got a close attack 4, 4 shields. That's an absolute beast. Like,
He's a beast.
compare that to Mega Tyrant. I mean, a Mega Tyrant's got living weapon and the other components, but he is an absolute beast. And for 17 points, that's remarkably good value for the strength of character that you're actually fielding there. And then looking at those other characters, like 10 points, 9 points, 11 points, you're talking about a close attack of 3 with shields of 3. They're very strong characters. So is it any wonder that you see them played so often and why they
I
do
think
well on the table?
I think Mega Tyrant's got a good chance with his living weapon and how you play. I think Mega Tyrant's more of you've got to team Mega Tyrant up to get the most out of Mega Tyrant. But I think he's like super powerful. You could potentially blast Chopper off the field before he even activates if you've got Mega Tyrant.
That's true, but you've got to spend another, what is he, 23 points or something?
Yeah, you get another, like put him with Terra, for example, and you're going to get a lot of shots off first. But
my point being, he's 6 points dearer than Chopper for what Chopper brings to the table. And if you then add those 6 points onto some other characters, you can do some really good things with Chopper.
Yeah. I mean, this list still has 4 combat shields in it, which is, makes them even tougher to take down. And pretty much, not quite everyone, but nearly everyone has a offensive combat skill.
Combat axe or mace.
Whether it be axe, I think there's axe, mace, and scimitar.
Scimitar, yeah. No, they're pretty. You don't want to get into base-to-base contact with them, basically.
No.
Effectively, I've got 8 characters
Not
that
at all.
charge down the board there. Some providing cover, and Scorch is hanging back, moving the shield, the generator around for that dodgy little bot that tries to fly around the back to take out my energy. So
just make sure you take overlords against them and tool up on nuclear shells, because it only takes 1 damage, right? And then everything costs double.
Absolutely.
So it just completely neuters trashes, like, because you can only if you put 2, because initially people are going to be putting just 2 cubes on them to run them up, double run. But if you hit them with nuclear shells, well, that's just 1 move. That's it for 2 cubes. So,
well, I know from my experience trying to hit them with gas gun. What sucker punch? Who's still shooting with like three dice normally. It's still difficult to get that 1 damage in quite often against somebody with 3 shields and a combat shield.
Yeah.
I
think the difference is there's 4 Overlords models with nuclear shells.
Yeah.
So it's just like a numbers game.
You're wearing them down.
But nuclear shell also works for the rest of that round. If the trashes have already gone before they've actually been hit by the nuclear shell, it won't have an effect on them, though, will it?
Correct. Yeah, correct.
So you're looking at a lot of, I mean, Chopper is a SR7, but a lot of the guys on my list are 5s. So that would be similar to the Overlords. So they may have actually gone before they actually even get hit by the nuclear shells in this particular.
Yeah, but it's about thinning them out. Like what we said at the start, remember, you don't want all the trashes to arrive on your doorstep at the same time. It's like one of those dwarf parties where the Hobbit gets stolen away. It's like they've got to all arrive at separate. Like if they arrive piecemeal, it's much easier to deal with them.
Yeah.
So because the Overlords, don't forget, also have Gorger, who's like a tank, and he's got a combat sword. So the trashes come up, he makes them re-roll. So he's likely to survive if he's got green ooze or something like that. So he sort of tanks the hits if they do get past, but not on all of them. As long as only 2 or 3 or less, two don't make it, then you can actually deal with the others okay. If you're spread out enough and things like that. It's when they arrive in a ball of like 3 or 4 guys all at once. It's almost impossible to deal with.
Yeah. And because so many of them are so close in SR, like they activate sort of like there's 6 or so SR5s all in there. So all of them are coming all at the same time, unless you've taken some out along the way. Because that's what happens. They get down to you, and then it's like, well, this one ram attacks, this one ram attacks, this one ram attacks, this one ram attacks, kind of thing. And even if you have some bigger kind of guy, even like running conspiracy or something, 2 ram attacks into conspiracy from these guys will take him down.
Absolutely.
But they will just keep ram attacking him until he's down, kind of thing. So they're incredibly difficult to deal with times, especially that Trasher saw kind of coming down the middle and then breaking apart and all running in, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of like when I think about all miniature games with like close combat orientated forces, the tactics are all very similar. It's like use terrain to block like straight charges and things like that. Try and thin out the numbers so you can deal with them in stages as they arrive. Like it's much easier dealing with 2 Trashers arriving, even if you put a dude out to take, to be the fall guy. They spend their ram attack, and then you can counter if you've got a later activation on those. So once you get them down and deal with them piecemeal, it's the same. Like I said, it's the same sort of tactics. You just don't want to have them arrive in just a giant ball of death. Because in regards to the Trashosaur bus, I mean that is pretty difficult to deal with. Like I can only think that it's easier to deal with on a city board because you can at least hide around buildings and out of line of sight and things like that. So yeah, that's a bit easy. Have you guys used the Trashosaur super abilities and stuff? You do need a lot of energy for it, which is hard in Trashers to get.
No, I haven't played against it.
Breath of Life or Super Tail Smash.
No, I haven't played against them because most of the time when Trashosaur's on the board, it's mostly just to transport them down.
Yeah.
In the games that I've played against. The games I've had against other people running some of the other combiners, I've seen them use those special abilities.
Well, yeah, the Super Tail Smash would work much better against another giant model rather than just one dude. It's probably overkill.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, against another giant model like Conspiracy or another combiner, that's really where Super Tail Smash comes in. But the Breath of Life, it's more like a healing thing. Yeah. It actually is better at healing than real super damage output.
Have you used it, Anthony?
The
Breath of Life.
No, I haven't healed anybody because I'm aggressive player. I'd rather run up and tail smash people because there's just more theater in it to me. But you have to write games where everybody is taken care of, and there might be some people that just like to heal people and be nice and friendly.
Look, they are an absolutely devastating army up close. You do not want to be up close. I think the Overlords are probably the only army that I can think of that could go toe-to-toe with them. Most other armies...
I think Deceivers are pretty good at... If you play Deceivers right, anything like the mind control is like really effective against them because you can mind control. It's that same sort of thing, mind controlling people so they break their lines. And so there's some left behind in mind control. And if you can get in an early mind control against before they form Trashosaur, that's always really effective as well because it sort of breaks the whole mojo of the if one can't work together. So
Yeah.
anything that breaks that up, any sort of special thing, could be like, was it sabotage? Anything that slows them down or breaks up their force that's coming at you all at the same time is good abilities to take against trashes. Like, they're not always going to be effective. You can get unlucky and stuff like that, but sometimes even the smallest disruption can actually mess them up a bit.
The Trashers are one of the factions that, when people are interested in the game, that I suggest to maybe start with. But there's like, when you want to get people into a game, you don't want to give them like a weaker faction that's hard to play, because then they're not going to win. Trashers are strong. They have one focus.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So
Yeah, I wouldn't say they're particularly
it's
like, they're
easier
not
for a new
green
player.
specters or anything.
No, you're not having to sort of figure out what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. They want to come forward and punch you,
Yeah.
kind of thing, and they're strong and good at doing that. So they're really good sort of for someone starting out in the game or haven't played many war games before, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're really good for that.
I'd definitely suggest those or Red Cannoneers, depending on which way people lean. If people like shooting, then I would say Red Cannoneers. If people just like, getting in and mincing people, then that would be the Trashers. So yeah, both forces are very single purpose.
Yeah, which is very helpful for a new player. Game that well yet.
Yeah.
Look, they're a great army. Is there one word that we'd all like to share, and what our thoughts are regarding how you could sum up the Trashers in one word? Bjorn?
Brutal.
Anthony?
I was going to use brutal, but it's been stolen.
You're allowed.
Yeah, brutal.
No.
Stuart?
Dangerous. I'll choose dangerous. I stole yours then, Stu.
Oh, I don't know. Brutal and dangerous seem to sum it up exceptionally well, I think. Single-minded. It's not really one word, is it? But single-minded.
And I was going to finish it out by devastating, but really they are brutal, I think is the best way to describe them. They're very nasty to play. Look, is there any other thoughts and processes you'd like to share before we wrap up on the Trashers tonight?
I think they're a fairly straightforward one.
I would just say that we all fear the Trashers because we've all played against them and can see their power. But I think part of that is like what we've been talking about is the single-mindedness of Trashers makes them sort of quite easy to play, whereas their counter is actually to really play bot war with all the little intricacies and everything like that. So like an expert player, like using green specters or someone like that can manipulate strategy, that can scout and mess up things and all that sort of stuff, I think will actually be really good against Trashers, but you require a lot more skill to make that happen compared to the person using Trashers, see? So I think that's part of the things I like about bot war is that you can get that, like, nothing's undefeatable. You just have to like actually play the game. I think that's one of the things I've come across over the years is that I think some people, when they play the game on the surface, they play, one or two times and like, I'm just going to move, I'm just going to shoot, I'm just going to do this. It's pretty simple. But actually, when you start really getting into the game and start manipulating strategy and trying to use some of the special rules like mind control or gas gun or disorientate, some of the ones we've talked about tonight, it actually gets a lot more complex and a lot more things, like stuff doesn't seem so black and white as what it appears on the top of when you first play the game. So if you are playing against Trashers, persevere. There is a way to beat them. Nothing's undefeatable in bot war. And look into all the little nuanced rules like sabotage and stuff like that to break them up.
Great advice. Guys, I'd like to thank you all for coming in tonight, having a chat to all of our loyal fans who are out there playing bot war and obviously, hopefully, keen to get into playing Trashers if they're not already playing Trashers already. And maybe we'll see some more lists in any competitions that are coming out. Again, thank you, Bjorn, Anthony, and Stuart for coming on.
Thanks, Mark.
Seeing you
Thank
guys
you.
episode 5.
See ya.
See you later, guys.